diffusion of gases from the atmosphere will be performed by stomata. That's the first function. Then the stomata possesses structures called chloroplast. This is the basic point you might be reading from 5th standard onwards. Chloroplast are the structures which will help in photosynthesis. Yes, somebody just define photosynthesis. What is photosynthesis?
Ma'am, photosynthesis is the process in which plant takes up sunlight, water, and oxygen to make food.
Okay, the basic definition. Other than that, some other point other student want to add? Yes or no? That's the basic definition of photosynthesis. Yes, of course. So here, if you take carbon dioxide and water, I hope you are familiar with these symbols now. I mean, you know this naming of the symbols, CO2, carbon dioxide. Shall I proceed like this, or I have to write in words?
This is fine.
Okay, so you people know these things, okay. So the other students, you people know these things, no? CO2, carbon dioxide, H2O, water. So by taking the carbon dioxide and water, the plant lives in the presence of sunlight. That's the first point you have to mention in photosynthesis. Isn't it? Without sunlight, photosynthesis will not happen. Okay? So in the presence of sunlight, the chlorophyll, this is the pigment which we'll find in chloroplast, will help in preparation of food, basically in the form of glucose with release of oxygen. This is basic equation you have learned in your earlier classes. Yes? What I'm writing on the slide, are the letters visible to you, students? I mean, are they clear?
Yes, ma'am.
So here, if you take the photosynthesis process, what we are saying is the plant will take carbon dioxide and water. Okay. In the presence of sunlight, it will prepare the food material in the form of glucose and oxygen will be released out. This is the actual process of photosynthesis. That will also be carried out by stomata. This is the second function. Okay. First function is stomata allows diffusion of gases. So why we used gases term? Because atmosphere is mixture of gases and plant will take carbon dioxide, oxygen and other gases also into it for various functions, and it will give out different gases like carbon dioxide, oxygen and other gases to outside. So this is something like in and out. That's called diffusion, which will be taken out by the stomata. And even photosynthesis, the second function of stomata. Okay. That is one more function for stomata. That is the third function. What is the third function? Third function of stomata is transpiration. Transpiration is nothing but losing water in the form of vapor, isn't it? So the plant aerial parts will lose water. The leaf, stem and branches will lose water. So all these are three functions, important functions of stomata. Now when you take the stomata, stomata is a plural word. It's a plural. So what is singular? What is singular of stomata? Try.
Stoma.
Yeah, stoma. Okay. Stoma is the singular form of stomata. Stoma, when we say stoma, stoma, it indicates single pore. If you say stomata, there are numerous pores. Okay. This is the basic idea regarding stomata and stoma. Are there any doubts with the functional aspect of stomata? Because when we discuss the structure, this terminology regarding functions will be repeated again and again. That's why I'm insisting on this point. Do you have any doubts with the functional aspect of stomata or stoma?
No, ma'am.
Sahas? Alicia?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So, okay. Now, when you take stomata individually, the structure somehow looks like this. See here, we are having a pore. Okay, this generally we call as stomatal pore. Pore is nothing but an opening, students. Okay, it's just an opening. This opening will show two concepts: closing and opening. So here, how this pore gets closed, how this pore gets opened, that all determines the plant. Okay, we'll see in the functional aspect. And when you take the stomata pore, a single pore, it is surrounded by two cells called guard cells. Usually you will have two guard cells around each pore. When you take one stomatal pore, you'll have two guard cells surrounding it. Now each guard cell, if you take, each guard cell will have a nucleus. And along with the nucleus, you'll have numerous chloroplasts in the guard cell. So this is the nucleus and these are the chloroplasts. Okay, in the stomatal pore, you won't have any structure. It's just an opening. It's just a pore. But around the pore, you will have two cells called guard cells. Each guard cell, we're talking about each cell. Each cell will have a nucleus and several chloroplasts. That's how it helps in photosynthesis. And around the guard cells, you will have numerous cells called subsidiary cells. Subsidiary cells are also called accessory cells. Okay, other name for subsidiary cells. So the total structure, if you take, you'll have a stoma or stomatal pore surrounded by two guard cells. And around the guard cells, you'll have numerous cells called subsidiary cells or accessory cells. This whole structure is called stomatal complex. Basic question. Okay. What stomatal complex will contain? Stomatal complex will contain a stomatal pore, two guard cells, and various subsidiary cells. Okay. Now, when you take the function of stomata or the stoma pore, how the function happens, the closing and opening, it will be done with the help of guard cells around it. So guard cells basically plays major role. Suppose assume the plant wants to take carbon dioxide for photosynthesis purpose from outside environment. or plant wants to take sunlight. How this sunlight or carbon dioxide gets inside the cell? Only through the stomata, through the pores only get it. So when they will get in, when the stoma is open, isn't it? When this pore is open, then only something can get in. When it is closed, sunlight or any gas cannot get in. Suppose the pore was open and sunlight and carbon dioxide came into the cell, and the guard cells will help in production of food. Okay. After that, the produced food material or the gas has to come out. Oxygen or water has to come out. So in order to things to come out of the cell, again the stomatal pore has to get open, which will be driven by guard cells. How this closing and opening of pores is done by guard cells. That's the point of interest over here. Okay. So why the closing and opening happening? In order to perform various functions. How the opening and closing of stoma will be affected by the guard cell. That we'll see. Assume that this is the guard cell. Okay, we are having two guard cells. In the guard cell, you will be having nucleus and chloroplast. Now, this is the pore, actual opening stoma. Suppose by transpiration, water is lost from the leaves. When water gets lost from the leaves, what happens is these guard cells around the stoma, around the opening, they will become like this. This stage we call it as flaccid in biology, which means shrinked. See, at the mid of the afternoon or at the early of evening, if you see the leaves will somehow look like tilted, isn't it? Ever you observe this process in a plant? At the mid afternoon, because of the heavy sunlight, or at the early evening, you'll have most of the leaves will be shrinked like this, tilted. This condition we call as flaccid. That's because continuously water will be lost during the hot sunlight and the hot temperature. Because of the loss of the water potential in the guard cells will be lost. Okay. Because of the transpiration process, the cells, guard cells, they will become shrink and look flaccid. In such case, the pore gets closed like this. If you take this part as the pore gets closed. So when the pore gets closed, losing water or moving off of gases will stop. But when the loss of water was stopped, then again the guard cells will become swollen like this. And the pore which is there inside, it gets opened. This condition we call as turgid. Turgid state in biology term, which means swollen. We got the point. When transpiration happens, water will be lost. As water was lost, water potential drops down and the guard cells will become shrink. And water loss will be controlled. That's what the plant will do. And again at the evening, throughout the night, the water loss will be controlled. At the night, you won't find any photosynthesis because the pore was closed. the stomata became flaccid. The leaves become shrinked. So during night time, you won't find photosynthesis. Okay? Because sunlight is also absent and your stomata pore also got closed. And when it gets into daytime, sunlight will be available. Yes? So when sunlight is available, photosynthesis process starts and water gets in, carbon dioxide gets in. So as the water is coming inside the leaf cells, the stomata will again get swollen. And the pore opens so that there will be process of diffusion of gases, photosynthesis and all. This is how the guard cells are controlling opening and closing of stomata and performing functions like photosynthesis and transpiration. Am I clear with the concept? Do you have any doubts?